Howdy, and welcome back. It is that time for another Workshop Wednesday. Today's edition is a Beyond Basics edition. So this one can get a little tricky, it's a little complicated, it's a little bit more for those of you who have some skills and just want to kind of level up a little bit. And we're going to be talking about setting up cross-domain measurement using iframes this time. So when you have iframes and you've got to measure across those iframes, and we're going to do it without using cookies, a very cool little thing. Now, if this is your first workshop, welcome. My name is Chris Mercer. I actually do go by Mercer. Everybody calls me Mercer. You should too. I'm the co-founder of measurementmarketing.io, and whether you found us through podcasts or talks that we've given, maybe through some of the content, we share some of our content with some of the platforms like CXL Institute and Digital Marketer, Social Media Examiner, etc. Maybe you're already a member of measurementmarketing.io. However you found us, we're happy you're here. It's our job to help people like you learn how to use platforms like Google Analytics, Tag Manager, Data Studio, how to essentially measure your marketing. And our flagship program, I like to remember to remind people, I should say, of this. The flagship program where we do all of our main training for our paying members is Measurement Marketing Academy. Now, the reason I mention that is because the framework is what that academy teaches. And even if you aren't an academy member, you can still use the Measurement Marketing Framework. Remember, it's plan, build, and then act. 3 simple steps. We all start off marketing in the blind. We're trying to get to a point where our systems, our marketing is producing a revenue. It's predictable profits, right? That's what we're trying to get to. Now, how do we do that? First, you plan, you get the right questions, you get the information to get those answers, and then you think about what actions you're going to take based upon the answers you get. That's your measurement plan. Then you move into the build, which is, of course, where today's training is really going to focus. So we talk about traffic. You got to make sure the traffic is in there. You got to make sure that you're using UTMs, things like that. You got to make sure that you've got your goals set up and you're measuring for the different results you're trying to achieve. And then in the structure, this is the part where cross-domain measurement comes in. And you've got to structure it in a way that ties traffic to results. Cross-domain measurement is that structure. You have to have that. Now, once you've got that in place, you then start reading the reports to get your benchmarks. You then use those benchmarks to forecast your near future results. And ultimately, you measure against your results with actual traffic. That's what will tell you what's working, what's not. And now you know where you should optimize. It's pretty simple. That is the measurement marketing framework in a nutshell. Now, with all of these trainings, we focus on one thing, one new idea. This is no different because there's going to be a lot of different concepts that Julie, our guest instructor, is actually going to show you today. So just keep in mind, you might want to rewatch this workshop again and again. There's going to be a lot that she's going to cover. This one goes a little bit long because it is such a unique content piece. But we wanted to make sure that you understood how to work with iframes, specifically in this new way of doing things. So with that, let's go ahead and get going, shall we? Beyond Basics, setting up cross-domain measurement in iframes without using cookies. Now, I'm going to introduce in just a second, technically I'm introducing her now, but I'm going to let her take over in just a second, our guest instructor, Julie Brade. She's been teaching measurement marketing since 2017. She's an account manager for our dedicated measurement clients. Many of you who are Academy members already know Julie Brade. She's one of our lead instructors back there in the Measurement Marketing Academy. So she's been doing this for a while, and she is a Data Studio rockstar. She's always building our reports and helping our students create theirs. The reason the Data Studio rockstar thing is so important is because when she's setting up measurement, she's doing it to build it some sort of Data Studio report or dashboard that obviously gives individuals like me the answers I need to guide the company and to adjust marketing. So in order for her to do that, sometimes she's going to have to measure through an iframe, and she'll explain what those are in just a moment. The reason that I wanted to have a brief conversation with you first here before we pass it over officially to Julie Brade is because iframes they're one of those things of the internet. I don't know how long they're going to last, but they're going to be around for a while. Like they're still going to be around for a long, long while. It's kind of a necessary piece. And again, Julie will show you kind of more about those. But it used to be that you could set this up really simple and you had this cookies and things got cookied and it was no big deal. So iframes themselves haven't changed all that much over the years, but cookies have, specifically first-party cookies and third-party cookies, and maybe you've heard about some of this. The browsers have issues with third-party cookies. People generally just hate cookies. Cookies got a very bad rap, and a lot of people misunderstand them. However, we are where we are. Cookies are generally less and less reliable. So when you go to set up your cross-domain measurement, you really shouldn't do it based on a cookie when it comes to iframes. There are other ways to do it that are a lot more reliable, and that's what Julie's actually going to show you. So I want to make sure I mention that and why this is so important, because if you've set up cross-domain before through an iframe and you've used cookies and kind of the traditional way of doing it, that's great, but it's not as reliable. It may not continue to work as well as you want it to. However, this new way that Julie's going to show you should be a lot more reliable. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and Julie, if you are there, again, I just really appreciate everything that you do. You're an absolute rock star, and I want to make sure that everybody understands kind of what goes into this, and you're the one to help out. So with that, take it away, Julie Brade.
Thank you so much for that awesome introduction, Mercer. Before we jump into the how of setting up cross-domain measurement with iframes, or through iframes, I should say, we want to understand the why, as I'm sure there's a pretty popular book out there that says we start with the why, and that's true for this as well. So understanding the why is going to help us be able to troubleshoot the how much easier. So we have here on our demo site an iframe that is within the page. So this is on measurementmarketing.io. This iframe is technically, I'm going to right click and view frame source, and you'll be able to see this iframe is actually a different domain. It's our sister site, seriouslysimplemarketing.com. And so you could have a opt-in page or something else that you're wanting to measure within the site. And we're going to jump into Lucidchart real quick to kind of say what happens whenever you have a setup like this, where you have a domain, then you have an iframe that is a different domain, and you're wanting to be able to see what's happening within the iframe. So let's go and see what happens. So we are going to pretend we have Google Ads traffic going to a particular page. And so we're going to call this URL right here, just to keep it with our example. And we have, that is not what I wanted to do, but we're going to go with it. I'm going to delete that out, and now we have it. So now we're going to make this bigger so it's easier to read. So we have Google Ads traffic coming into this domain, right? And then within this page, because we're going to make it bigger, there is another page, and we're going to call this an iframe, and we're going to get to this URL in here as well, just so it's quite visible what's happening here. And we're going to get rid of this real quick. Okay, so we now have our Google Ads traffic that is going into this measurementmarketing.io page, correct? And it could have, we're going to say this client ID for measurementmarketing.io equals 1234. Okay, this is for client ID. I'm going to color code these real quick to make it a little bit easier to understand. So this one is blue, and this one is going to be, I'm going to make this another shade of blue. And this one we can make yellow, and then we're going to copy the shape just to make it easier. And this one is going to be yellow. But by default, with no extra setup, what's going to happen is this one's going to show a different client ID. So what does that mean? It means the traffic that you're paying for, or maybe you're not paying for, maybe it's organic traffic, whatever it is, the traffic that is coming to this site, the blue, our measurementmarketing.io, they are going to be assigned a client ID, and then once they start interacting with this, like let's say they achieve a goal or a conversion or anything like that, you won't know that it came from Google Ads or Google organic traffic or Facebook ads or anything like that, because it's going to be assigned a different client ID. Why is it being assigned a different client ID, you might ask? And the simple answer, without going into too many details, is that basically this page is what we're going to call the parent page. At the end of this, we're going to say the parent page is not talking to this page right here, and we're going to call that, you guessed it, child page. And that is the technical terms that we're going to be using here, parent page and child page. Those aren't our fun names that we like to create over here at measurementmarketing.io. That are actually the dev names for them. So even if you have cross-domain measurement set up normally. Like if this was a completely separate page, not an iframe, and you had all the things in Tag Manager set up and analytics set up properly, and you did have the client ID coming through the way you wanted it to, if it was a completely separate page. If it's an iframe, you have to do some special setup uh, in order for these two pages to talk to each other and to have this client ID be the correct one. And what you could see in analytics if you don't do this, or even in your Google Ads, what you're going to see in Google Ads would be that you're sending people to this page, but then you're not having any conversions, whether it's like for opt-ins or anything else. You're not going to see any conversions. So clearly that's not going to be good for your Google Ads algorithms or anything like that. In Google Analytics, you're not going to see any goal conversions. So you'll see, again, traffic coming to this page, but you'll see your goals. Most likely it'll say direct none as an untagged traffic that Google has no idea where they came from. And then that all comes down to the fact that these two are two different numbers. And that's, again, understanding the why. Why do we need to measure through? Is because we want to have the proper traffic attribution. We want to be able to say if someone is interacting with this page, we know the entire journey that the user's been on. We know the entire conversation that the user has been having with the page. And that way we can obviously optimize our pages and understand what the user is doing. So let's take it back. So understanding the why is going to help us understand the how. So let's go ahead and jump into the next step. And we are going to go into this particular blog with Simo Ahava. So, and I'll let you grab that URL and everything. We'll have it back there in our member site for you to look at as well. But basically, we are going to follow the instructions. Simo's already done the hard work. I highly recommend, even if you don't understand the Debbie talk that goes on in most of Simo's blog, this one is done really well. And I feel like even if you, like I said, you don't understand it, just go through it and you'll just have a better understanding of the kind of behind the scenes so that if you need to communicate with your client or something like that, you can explain what's going on. But just a good education for all of us. So what we are going to do is we are going to basically see if we can get our cross-domain measurement to match, like get our client IDs to match so that we can have proper attribution. So let's jump back into this page real quick and we're going to see it not working, but so we can understand how, when it does work, what it's actually doing differently. So I'm going to press Control-Shift-I, Command-Shift-I if you are on a Mac, and we're going to turn on our GA debug. And so I know this again looks really Debbie and lots of stuff going on back here. But what we're looking for is basically 2 or 3 different things. We're just going to look for page view, hit type of page view, and then we're looking for the client ID. So we have 3617, ending in 3617, and then I'm notating to myself that this is on the measurementmarketing.io domain. So now I'm going to scroll through, and sometimes just it might make a difference. Sometimes you will need to know which tracking ID it's associated to in case you have more than one. You need to notate that if you have more than one on there. So we're going to keep scrolling down until I find like another section like this and then another page view. So I'm just scrolling down until I find that, and I might have done that right here. So we see another page view, and this is 5204, and this is Serious Simple Marketing. So thinking back through our examples, that says 5204, and this one up here, what did we say? It says 3617. So going back to our Lucidchart right here, they don't match. We need them to match in order for proper traffic attribution, and that's what Simo's blog is telling us what to do. And so quite literally, we are going to be copying and pasting and adjusting a few things. Again, reading the blog is going to be extremely helpful because it'll tell you, hey, we're going to do, like basically we're going to do these steps. And so just go through it, and I'm going to walk you through everything that we are doing on our site, and and so hopefully it'll be very similar to what you have to do on your site. So I literally just selected all of this, and we're going to copy, and then we're going to come into Tag Manager, and I'm in a demo workspace, and we're going to go to our tags, and we're going to click New and click on our tag option here, and then we're going to choose Custom HTML, and we're going to paste it in. And we're going to follow the prompts that are in here in this goldish orange. And so we have this UA that's right here that we need to find. And that could be, you might already have a variable like one of these over here that has that, it's a constant, you have that. If you don't, let's see where we find that one. We are going to go into Analytics, and then we're going to go to our bottom left hand corner, go to Admin. Then we are going to make sure that we choose the right property. This is the actual measurementmarketing.io one. I want the demo one because that would be good to make sure we use the right one. And I'm looking for, because I know it ends in a -4. There it is, right there. I'm looking for that -4. So now I go into Property Settings, and then I'm going to grab this number. That's all we have to do, copying and pasting right now. And then here we go, paste. That's it for the first one. And then we have this second option. So if you need to change your time, again, read the blog. If this applies to you, you might want to adjust this. I'm not. So most people I don't think will. And then here is where we set the page. And so it says the child origin. So if we remember from our Lucidchart, the child page is this one right here. So I'm going to go back to where I had that frame source, and I want to grab this. Actually, I can probably grab it off of this easier. And one quick note that I thought was really important here is when we come down here and it's telling you to grab the child origin, it's really important to note that it basically tells you, even right here, it's not going to have that trailing slash. So you want to be very aware of what you do. And when the first time I did that, I left the trailing slash and it didn't work. It didn't work until I got rid of the trailing slash. So just be aware of that. So now that is all we do, because if we come back up here to see all these little gold text, it says don't touch anything that follows. So we are going to listen to Simo and his amazing advice and not touch anything that follows. So even though we put the child origin page in here, this is actually the script that's going to be for the parent page. So if I come in here, and I'm going to actually name this, so you can name it CHTML for custom HTML, or if you want to call it scripts, you can call it that too. And I'm just going to say parent page iframe measurement. And that way, so anyone else coming through knows this is for the parent page. And then the trigger that we're going to use is going to be for the parent page. So again, going back to our Lucidchart, this one right here is going to be our trigger. And I don't need all of that extra stuff. So we're going to have our trigger, and we're going to create a new one, because I know I don't already have it. We're going to create it at the page view. We're going to say some pages, and we can have this as our page URL contains this, and then we're going to name it real quick. Page view there, just for the sake of time. All right, so we are good to go on this first one. We just copied and pasted this, and we're basically saying, you know, look for this domain and make sure you fire here. If you have a lot of iframes all throughout your site, you could make this more generic, and it could be on all pages and stuff. So, but for this example, we're just being very specific. Look for it on this particular page. So now we're going to say save. And then we have our next script that we want to copy and paste. and we're going to scroll down. We have to be careful because right here he's explaining all of the different types of scripts that we're seeing in there, so we want to make sure that we grab the right portion, and we're looking for, so this is the parent page setup, and then we're going to scroll down until we see the child page setup. This is where I'm just getting my bearings in this really long blog. So here we go. So we see the child page setup, and again he says some very specific instructions that we will run through here in just a moment, explain what all that stuff means. So we're going to select all of this, again copying it, coming in here, new, clicking on our little tag, again custom HTML, again pasting, and we're going to come up and follow instructions, and here we go. And says if you know the blog is going to help you understand a lot of these things, but for most of us it's going to be coming through here and adjusting this little portion right here. And so this is the parent domain. Again, don't add this trailing slash like I did the first time and not have it work for you. We're going to come back to our lucid chart. Actually, I think I have it already. No, I don't. I have something else pasted, ready to paste. And so we are going to paste this in here. Again, no trailing slash or it won't work. And so there we go. And we're just, if you want to understand what the script is saying, again, the blog is going to help you with that. And now for our triggering on what this one, like where is this one supposed to fire, or when is this one supposed to fire? And in the case of what we are doing in this particular page, I want it to fire on, and I'm going to bring it back over. I want it to fire on this page, which is Seriously Simple Marketing. And because I read the blog, I don't want it to fire if it doesn't have a client ID value. And that is something that it's going to see in the data layer. Again, a little bit technical, but if you just follow the steps of the blog and what we're showing you here of how to implement it, it'll make a whole lot of sense. So again, we want to make sure that we have all the parts and pieces we need. So I want to say page view, and we want to say the page URL contains seriously simple marketing.com, and we're going to say PV is SSM. So right now what we're saying is the page view contains the page view is for when the page URL contains seriouslysimplemarketing.com. And then there's one other piece that we need to create to finish this trigger. So we're going to save this and we'll come back to it in just a second. And then we're going to name this tag CHTML, and then we're going to call this child page for iframe measurement. All right, so we're going to say save. Now, again, because I read the blog, one of the things it says down here that it tells us to do is to create our data layer variable with client ID. I want to do that real quick and finish that trigger first, and then we'll circle around and do those other options because this just seems like it makes more sense to me to do it in this order. So we have a data layer variable, and we're going to call it client ID with a capital I in there. We're going to name it DLV client ID. We're going to save. And what we're going to do with that is very simply go back to our tags, go back to our page view SSM trigger. We're going to click on this, and then we're going to add another stipulation to this, another condition. So when all of these are true, so we're going to say when page URL contains your simple marketing, and when data layer variable, and this we're going to be very careful with our logic, contains, and we're going to actually say this is going to be easier logic, so it does not contain undefined. So that's what we're going to do. So when client ID does not contain undefined, basically if there is something there, I need you to fire. And so we're going to say save. And I'm actually adjusting my logic because so the logic that I just gave you is going to be for the actual page view tag, and what we need to do for this one, because it's not going to be there till after that, it says it as actually contains. So forgive me for that. So when page URL is Serious Simple Marketing and there is no client ID, that's what we're doing for this with no client ID. Okay. When there is a client ID, we'll do something else in a moment. So we have our, we're going to refresh so we can see the new name. So we have our parent that is firing on the measurementmarketing.io page. Then we have our child page script. If there is no client ID, it's going to fire. So what's next? Well, we go to our blog, and then we have these things right here that we're also supposed to do, and this is inside our Google Analytics settings variable. And so we're going to go to our Google Analytics settings variable, and we are going to make sure that we add these other options. So we're going to click into our add fields and go back to it. He says storage is none. Is none. And then add field, we're going to go back, client ID, and we're using the data layer variable we just created. That's the reason I like to do it in this order, because we needed the data layer variable before we started doing this stuff. So now we're going to do client ID, and then we're going to say DLV of client ID. So this is again just making sure that the new client ID is available, and it's going to be passed through with the page view or whatever else you're using it for. So we're going to go ahead and press save and go through our blog again, just see if there's anything else in here that we want to do. And it looks like we need to create a custom event trigger for when the client ID is there. So we're going to go back to our tag manager, and we don't need to be in variables anymore. We want to go to triggers, and we're going to create a new one, and we're going to click here, and you're going to choose custom event, and this is simple, client capital ID, and I'm going to copy this and use this for the name, CE client ID, and save. All right, so we have all different parts and pieces. Just to review, we've copied and pasted 2 HTML tags. We've adjusted them very slightly with copying and pasting a few pieces. We've made a trigger so it only fires on one specific page for the parent page. And we've also said don't fire, or should only fire this when there is no client ID. Because obviously if there is a client ID, we don't need it to fire. Now, if we go back to our blog, one of the important things that it mentions, and this is one of the steps that that is probably going to be missed the most, so that's why I wanted to stress on this part. You need to do 3 things in the tag manager container. So it's talking about the custom HTML. You need to adjust your settings. We just did all that. And now this most important thing, that because it's not going to work unless you do this, is update all the triggers so they don't fire until they receive the client ID from the parent. So what does that mean? That means, for example, the easiest one to explain is the page view. So what we need to do is to make sure that our page view doesn't fire. Like right now it's saying all pages. It can't fire on all pages because if it fires too soon, it's not going to have the right client ID. So what we're going to do is create an exception trigger, and we actually can use the exact same logic we just used for the one we created with Serious Simple Marketing with no client ID. Only because it works for us in this particular logic sense. We don't want that to fire if there is no client ID on that particular page. And so right now we're saying fire on all pages except for Serious Simple Marketing if there is no client ID. Well, we do want let's bring it back for the visual example. We do want this iframe to have measurement page view, whatever it is that we want it to measure. I want to show page view just because that's the simplest example. So we do want it to be visible and to have that measurement. So what is it that we do for that? So the easiest way is to make sure that it does fire. It's like, so if we want it to have a page view, we can just simply add in the plus and say client ID. That was the custom event for the client ID. So knowing that this is here, it can fire. So we're going to go ahead and press save. The other thing that you can do, like let's say it's not necessarily a page view that you want it to fire because you don't want it to fire an extra page view for whatever your setup reason is. You could say, so something like this for scroll, you could come instead of saying this trigger fires on all pages, you could say some pages, and this is where you can get little, depending on your setup, you can say page URL contains, or excuse me, we could do it this way too. We can say, you can say page URL does not contain Seriously Simple Marketing if you don't want this to fire on that particular iframe or not. Or you can say DLV, the client ID, does not contain undefined. That's another way. So again, depending on your situation, depending on your setup, you can adjust your logics for it to fire the way you want. And again, the blog talks about that and gives you an example. Again, stacking your logic with your triggers, like here. So it's an equal, so whatever this is, another variable equals true, and it is not undefined. So just there's lots of different things that you can do. I just page view is the easiest example that we're going to work through now. If we did not adjust all of our Google Analytics tags and Google Analytics 4 tags, what's going to happen is that these things are going to fire and create an ID before the scripts have a chance to run. So I have actually already have a default workspace here, and I'm going to come into the workspace and you can see that I've already adjusted all of our different tags and triggers in here. For the sake of time, so you guys can see that once everything is set up and done, you probably have a lot of different changes for this. And for us, just to make sure that everything is squeaky clean, and I basically turned off measurement for the Seriously Simple Marketing site for this example, only because Seriously Simple Marketing is only in this iframe for this. So if you're working with something like lead pages or anything else where it's only one very particular one, you can turn it off for that very one particular one just to make sure it's all working correctly. So just wanted to point that out for you. So let's go ahead and get into a preview mode so we can see this working in action. So we're going to go ahead and click on our preview, and we're going to make sure that is the right page that we want to choose, and it's going to do its thing. And we're going to go ahead and press Control-Shift-I because we'll walk through what Tag Manager is doing in a second. We want to confirm that it's working the way we want it to first. So again, we're going to come through here and look for that page view and look for that client ID. And so we have it here, page view, and then we have client ID of 0743, and we're on the measurementmarketing.io site, the domain. Okay, the 0743 is what we're going to look for on the other one, to TBV. And so what I see here, just so you know why I'm skipping through some of this other stuff, these are events. I'm looking for the page view that's happening. And here it is. So here's the page view. Here is 0743, and we're on Seriously Simple Marketing. So it's working as expected. I can continue and make sure everything else is, working as expected too, because GA can tell me everything's being sent, but if it's not sending with the proper client ID here, then it doesn't quite matter. So this is the ultimate TBV. Then obviously going into analytics and using test UTMs and verifying that your traffic and your goals and your conversions are now being attributed properly is the final TBV on that trust but verify. So here we go. We are now in our preview mode. And I want to point out something fun when you're measuring through iframes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 then we jump to 20. But our 7, 8, 9, 10, so they're doing things at the same time. So just depending on what millisecond they came in is what order they come through. But so they're separated by pages now, which is really nice to be able to kind of visualize and see how things happen. So, and one other neat thing that you can see here is going to try to zoom out for a sec so you can see this. So this is a orange diamond. This is a yellow open circle. And we have, did I say yellow? Wow. Red open circle. Here's a red open circle, and here's the orange diamond. So now we can see this. Remember that custom event that we created? We're going to go to our tags, and I'm going to sort it by last edited so you can see. That's not it. There it is. So this, remember this custom event saying when we have this, I want you to fire the page view. That's exactly what I'm expecting to happen right here. I'm expecting when I click on this, I should see a page view. And if I click on here, it's going to say why. This because the client ID was there. So that's why we didn't have that. So, and then coming down here to the container loaded of Seriously Simple Marketing, we can find out why the page view didn't fire. And it says, hey, we didn't fire the page view because these things, because it was seriouslysimplemarketing.com and the client ID was undefined. And then going to our variables, and if you're troubleshooting and you're saying, well, why is it not working? You go to your variables and say, your client ID, is it undefined? Yes, it is at this point in time. And we go to client ID here, and we see client ID, and it's not undefined. That's why it started working and all that. So the other thing to troubleshoot is if you're not seeing, obviously if you don't see the client ID, but if you don't see these type of things coming through, something is going on. To troubleshoot, if you're wondering like where do I start, first things first is I would suggest looking at your scripts to see if you have those trailing slashes. And then, and I'm going to just review that real quick to make sure. Right here, don't have a trailing slash, a slash at the end of that one or the other one for the parent page. Don't have a trailing slash. It will not work with this. And then the other thing is making sure that you, I want to say the word unplug or remove the iframe measurement from those pages. So for example, for this one, for GA4 page view, because again, this is a demo account and we're just trying to demo here. So I said, don't fire a page view for GA4 if it's Seriously Simple Marketing and the client ID is undefined. And I did that for most of our tags. I've even adjusted the logic, say don't fire into Seriously Simple Marketing. Basically unplugging the measurement for the iframe only for this. Again, because this particular demo site, Seriously Simple Marketing, is only in this iframe. I didn't want scroll firing. I didn't want GA4 stuff. I didn't want any of our engagement tracking or measurement firing through here because I wanted a nice clean setup that I knew 100% that the only thing that I could pass through was going to be this page view because of this. And then now that I know that, what I could do is obviously I publish my changes first after I run through and TBV trust but verify a little bit more, and then I could come through and slowly start to adjust things and make sure, probably do some tag sequencing and saying page view has to happen before scroll or before our other type of tags. That way something like scroll or interested or introduced couldn't fire before. Obviously these are a little bit different because they're scroll and timers. They shouldn't fire, but we're going to safeguard ourselves and make sure that nothing could possibly happen before the page view, thus making the client ID not have what it needs, or technically it would basically force the, I want to actually jump into our Lucid chart. If we try to fire something before it has the right client ID, before the scripts have a chance to do its thing, it's going to go back and give it, this 5, 6, 7, 8. It's not going to the scripts aren't going to have a chance to do their job. We want to give the scripts a chance to do their job. So that's where you can come in with tag sequencing and stuff like that. So, so in this particular case of impression, what I could do is then advanced settings, tag sequencing, and fire tag before. And this is where I would say the GA4 page view in this particular case. That way I know for sure that the this one will not fire before the page view. I'm going to actually discard this one, and then same thing if I wanted to go add it to the GA4 page view. I do the same thing that I did before. So I'm ready to add it, so I can say plus this custom event of client ID, and I could save it. And so that is a way to do it. So you could, like I said, have a nice clean version of testing it and only have one tag that you know it's supposed to fire. And then once you know that one's working properly, you can come back and add in all of your other measurement and use the logic. Again, using CMO's blog, running through it, read it through, then you can follow along with our in demonstration here. And if you have any questions, obviously we are back in Ask an Instructor member support, and if you have any questions on the logic, anything like that, we are there to help you. I want to hand it back to Mercer now.
All right. Thank you for that, Julie. So what was your one thing from our little adventure together today? Now, remember, the whole idea of iframes, it can be confusing. There's a lot to them. You just have to slow yourself down, especially if these are new to you, which they probably are if you're watching this workshop. So slow down, go step by step, use CMO's post as Julie did. CMO does a fantastic job, and we are all standing on the shoulders of giants, and CMO is the giantest of the giants. So I know it's bad grammar, but you get the idea. CMO's amazing. Go step by step. You can use this workshop, use this blog post, adjust things accordingly. And of course, for Academy members, we always have Ask Instructor support, so you can ask questions back there whenever you like. Remember, this is not reliant upon this whole third-party cookie concept. And when I say cookies, when I mentioned it earlier in this workshop, that's kind of what it's all about, is this the fact that third-party cookies are going away is what's making this necessary to be able to set up iframe measurement without having to rely on cookies. And by cookies, I mean third-party cookies. Yes, you're still using cookies in that Google Analytics uses cookies and platforms use cookies, and cookies are used by the internet. So cookies technically are never going away, but they are first-party, which is the biggest difference. So that's why this is important. When you're going through and setting up your iframes, this is the new way to do it. All right. So with that, again, you can always rewatch this workshop if you have other questions going through it. Next week, we're going to be flipping to a strategy session edition of Workshop Wednesday. As we do, each week is a different edition. And next week is a strategy session. We're going to talk about, can you trust your Google Analytics? It's asking an important question. Can we trust it? What's going on with this whole iOS and Apple, and holy cow, with what was going on with Facebook, and everything seems to be changing, and can we even trust our numbers anymore in Google Analytics? We're going to talk about that as well. If that is of interest, you can definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you like workshops like this, you can get notified. Just subscribe, ask to be notified. YouTube will let you know when they come out, and it would be a pleasure to have you. And thank you for over 2,100 now. It's like every day there's more subscribers. So thank you very much for helping us to continue to build the momentum and letting us know that this is useful for you. The Measurement Marketing Toolbox is also another way to get access to our training, plus some extra stuff. So you get the Workshop Wednesday. That's back there. You always get access to the most recent Workshop Wednesday, and you get access to all of our tools that we've created for our members. You got lots of different tools that we've created for members. We allow our Toolbox members, which is our free level membership. So Toolbox members can have access to that as well. Traffic tracking toolkit, dashboard toolkits. There's regex stuff. There's GTM cookbooks. There's all sorts of cool things back there. So even if you've got some skills and you're like, I know how to use Tag Manager, like that's great. Use the cookbook. There's some cool things back there. So in the Measurement Marketing Toolbox, completely free for you. Just go to measure.tip/WW, put your name and email, and it'll send you login details, and we'll get you up and running. The other option, of course, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this particular broadcast, was Measurement Marketing Academy. It is our flagship program. We built it for this, to help you get through this framework step by step. So a very quick tour as we go through, just to show you, it's just a popular thing. I get emails all the time saying, what's exactly in the Academy? This is what's in the Academy. It's why we're putting all the tours here so that you can see it every time. You get access to these 6 blocks. That's what comes when you're an Academy member. Win courses, which is where all the courses are. You've got on-demand workshops. You've got the toolbox. So these are the resources. And then you've got a couple of different ways for support. The Winner Circle, which is the community group itself. And then you've got the instructors. Yes, we actually have real live humans that help you out. So you send us videos and screenshots, we'll send you videos and screenshots back. A quick tour of what these look like in the WIN courses. This is the courses. They listed by date. The reason this is because members come in sometimes, especially when you've got your basic skills. You don't need to come to the academy every day, though we'd love to have you. But sometimes it's like, I check in once a month or once every couple months, and they get the latest course updates coming through. So we just did WIN Google Optimize. Before that, WIN Google Tag Manager server side. Before that was the Beyond Basics for Tag Manager. Before that, Data Studio. You can see that these are updated, right, all the time. This was just updated in July. Then they're also organized by topic. So sometimes you just want to go into GA and learn like GA4. Let's go learn Google Analytics 4. So there's GA4. This one is was most recently updated in October, is actually getting updated again in August. It's the third time we've updated it in a year because this platform changes so quickly, but it just goes to show you how we think about stuff here. So yes, this is getting updated. And actually gets updated for August 2021. So within the month, you'll have that one updated. There's our tag manager stuff. You start with the basics, beyond basics, retargeting. There's JavaScript basics for those who want to pick up some coding, and then server side. So you can got that. There's a lot of stuff back here that you can get. This is just the courses. So just the courses, organized by topic, by lesson. There's a lot here. And of course, you have instructor support if you get stuck on anything. The on-demand workshops, that's just the courses. The on-demand workshops, they look like this. You, of course, see the workshop. This is what I meant by you get access to the workshop Wednesday, same one you're seeing on YouTube now. So you see that. However, Academy members get access to special editions of these workshops where they've been edited down. Obviously, stuff like this is taken out. So people can see all of the different topics that they've missed. They can get caught up, or they can organize by topic. So the edition, the What's News edition, so they can go through and get caught up in the latest changes to platforms like Google Analytics, Tag Manager, or Data Studio, the Getting Started section, the Beyond Basics section, the Strategy section, etc. So they have access to all of those. As resources, this is the exclusive member-only resources that Toolbox members get for free. Academy members also get these, obviously. So you have access to all the different tools, but Academy members also get this, the Get It Done guides, new section we've created, which is kind of like a kit. So it's like, we'll teach you Tag Manager and Google Analytics, and once you got those skills, it's like, here's a cool thing that we can do to help you, use those Tag Manager and Analytics skills and Data Studio skills to build this really cool report that does these things, right? So it's things like that. These are what we call Get It Done guides. So you'll see those back here as well. And then finally, of course, as I go through, we got the WIN courses, the on-demand workshops, and the toolbox. The Winner Circle, of course, is just a community back there where other members are back there. Sometimes we just don't have a particular skill. Like if you can't ask us a Facebook ads setup question because we don't run traffic, or so we don't know the Facebook ads platform from a how to improve your ads perspective, or how to set up ad sets or whatever else. That's somebody else's job, right? That's not what we do. We focus on the measurement of it, and we can certainly help with those. But a lot of our members are agencies, and so there's a lot of people back there helping each other out with their special abilities. So you can do the same thing as well. And then the Ask Instructor support, that is where most of the members use, or what most of the members use, I should say, for help, because it's not public. So that's part of the reason. Sometimes you're sharing, client data. You need to show a site, and you're trying to figure out your implementation setup, or trying to walk through a strategy, and you want somebody to have a fresh pair of eyes, or to help you get through some of the technical challenges you're running into. That's what Ask Instructor is. As you can see here, the instructors are on from Monday through Friday, US, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. We typically get most of the responses within 24 hours, 24 business hours, I should say. So you can do that as well. The way it is, just click this little button, pop in your question, and then screenshots and videos. Send us screenshots and videos. We love watching those, seeing those. Instructors end up sending you screenshots and videos back most of the time, or a lot of the time. So you essentially have a kind of like a consultant on call. Like imagine me or Julie, and you're virtually able to kind of call us over and say, hey, can you look at my setup? Like that's what this is. Whether it's a strategy question or an implementation question, as long as it's measurement related, we are able to help you out back here. And that's what Ask Instructor support is all about. It's kind of what separates us out from a lot of other things that are out there. So that is the Academy. It is a just-in-time learning platform. Do not think this is one of those things where you're going to go in and watch every course and watch every on-demand workshop, because I promise you, we create content faster than you could ever consume it. I promise you that. The reason is so that you can search through it. So you can come in here and you like, I want to look about goals or whatever it is. You can come in here, you can type in what the thing is that you're trying to find. You can ask an instructor. The instructors can help you build a little curriculum and to get you the courses that you need, or to get you the skills, or suggest strategies. And it goes through and it searches here. Here's all the workshops that match that. Here's all the courses that match that. So it is a searchable database that's back here, and that's why. And again, the instructors, if you can't find something, ask an instructor. They'll 9 times out of 10, sometimes they're like, oh, here's a video that covers that, or here's a workshop where this part will be covered, and they can help you out. So you always have access to all of this fun stuff that's back here. As an Academy member, it is a just-in-time learning platform. So quickly going through kind of the value of this, if you want to get an idea, if you're trying to justify like why would I, what the rate is that you want me to pay for it. Between the courses themselves, you get all updates, all new courses. So there is no limits and you get everything. So that's there. It's at least $3,500 because when we used to sell these courses, we sold them for $200 a piece. And now at this point, there's well over $3,500 in value there. The Ask Instructor support, that's at least worth $500 to have somebody on call who will help you. It's concierge level support. It's way beyond I lost my password kind of support. This is way beyond that. It's like having somebody who's an expert in the field, who understands marketing, who understands what you're trying to do, who speaks your language, right? We speak measurement marketing just like you will. And so that's the idea, having somebody there that can help you out. The on-demand workshop library, each of those workshops we used to sell for $20 a piece way back when we first got started. It's actually how we got started. And so now with well over 200 videos back there just in the library, you've got, $4,000 of value. And then the Winner Circle community, at least worth $100 to be part of a community of like-minded members such as yourself. So all of that total, you've got about $8,500 in training and support that you have access to each and every month that you're an Academy member, right? Think about that. It's almost $10,000 in value that you've got back that you have access to, that you're supposed to splash around in, and you get your answers from. Like, it's all back there for whenever you need it. It's there for you. Now, of course, it's substantially cheaper than $8,500 to become an Academy member. So just go to measure.tips/getacademy. You can see the latest offers that we have there for you. There are two options. There's monthly and there's annual. I recommend the annual. Of course, I would, because it is our program. So, but it is something that a lot of members will, maybe they try us out for a month or two, then they end up moving to annual anyway, because they understand just how much there is to learn in the world of measurement, and that things change almost every day in the world of measurement. And they need a place that they can stay, that they can rely on to help them keep up with it. And we got you. That's what we're here for, to help make sure that we're helping you improve your measurement skills as the world changes and as the tech changes. So that is the Measurement Marketing Academy, and hopefully we look forward, if it's a good fit, to you being an Academy member soon. With that, we will officially bring this one to a close. This has been Beyond Basics, setting up cross-domain measurement in iframes, all without using cookies. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we'll see you on the next one.